The Afghan refugees for 40 years. Pakistan's problems and possible courses of action. With little help from abroad, the Islamic Republic of Pakistan has celebrated 40 years of welcoming its Afghan brothers and sisters with open arms, thankful hearts, smiling smiles, and tolerant minds. Since the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in 1979 and forced Afghans in need to seek refuge in Pakistan, their second home, they have been here. In this regard, Antonio Guterres, the Secretary-General of the United Nations, praised Islamabad's efforts to accommodate Afghans with exceptional kindness during his recent visit to Pakistan. Afghanistan, which has been experiencing insecurity, instability, fragility, and economic bankruptcy for decades, likewise appears unable to absorb the returning refugees from Pakistan, Iran, and other countries, despite Pakistan having been housing Afghan refugees for the past 40 years. Beyond the humanitarian side, Pakistan's Afghan refugees are both a resource and a burden for the nation. The issue of Afghan refugees' extended presence in Pakistan is viewed by the public in two ways, either positively or negatively. Many criticize this approach, pointing out the humanitarian aspect of the dilemma. Because of the issue's sensitivity and significance, careful deliberation and decision-making are required, otherwise, misunderstanding and hurried action might undo all of Pakistan's 40 years' worth of efforts. There is a widespread understanding in Pakistan that the issue will remain until there is internal security and improved government in Afghanistan, notwithstanding the controversy and the many obstacles limiting the range of opportunities for the return of Afghan refugees. The expected improvement is contingent on the removal of foreign forces and the strengthening of the Afghan government's capacity to control the country's territory, particularly in light of Dr. Ashraf Ghani's re-election and the US-Taliban peace negotiations. It is important to note that since their arrival in Pakistan, foreign aid for Afghan refugees has been negligible. Once victims of communist violence, the refugees were discarded, and Pakistan, with few resources at its disposal, was forced to fend for itself amid an endless stream of new arrivals. Some voices in the modern day advocate for the expulsion of Afghan refugees. Nevertheless, this will only serve to increase Afghans' animosity and malice toward Pakistan, despite their 40 years of hospitality in this nation. The asset liability and humanitarianism matrices, on the other hand, don't easily match with any one group due to divergent viewpoints and the fact that the analysis of the refugee crisis is typically done in isolation in order to make quick, strategic judgments. For example, Afghan refugees are frequently held responsible for the introduction of narcotics and Kalashnikov culture. Furthermore, it is said that their continued presence in Pakistan is to blame for the shrinking prospects for local laborers and traders to expand. When the humanitarian side becomes paramount, though, the argument becomes accommodating and compassionate. Another important viewpoint addresses the matter within the framework of Muslim fraternity and has continued to show support for the guests from Afghanistan in spite of the resulting difficulties. Even though this perspective appears to have been used against Pakistan and may have contributed to strategic ramifications in Afghanistan and ethnic tensions within Pakistan, along with potentially related consequences for national security, the strategic community is more likely to see it as Pakistan's investment in Afghans. It is, however, completely unrealistic to attribute the stories to certain groups or to draw a clear distinction between them. It is appropriate to forego the economic reductionism for the time being and try to articulate other aspects of the problem, taking a lead from the general consensus in Pakistani society that Afghan refugees will remain as members of their communities. Given the pressure that Pakistan's 2.4 million registered refugees along with the many unregistered have placed on the country's economic, social, and cultural fabric, their dignified return to their native country should be the ultimate goal. However, Any plan for resettlement of refugees in Afghanistan must take into account the limited ability of the Afghan government and the lack of interest on the side of the international community. Islamabad officials should be guided by the idea that the Afghan government and its backers should create pull factors in Afghanistan rather than push factors in Pakistan. Pakistan's current condition of data collecting and exchange is the only potential facilitation it can provide. On the other hand, because local authorities are determined to systematically rewrite governance guidelines, the push factors would result in an exponential increase in harassment and forced deportations. Given this revelation, it is also important to note that there is broad consensus that, in the event of a deportation, the process should be conducted as cooperatively as possible and that the authorities shouldn't be subjected to coercive tactics. In light of these entrenched issues, the first line of action need to be an effective and ongoing data gathering effort, otherwise, the misunderstandings over the existence and legality of Afghans in Pakistan would only worsen. Furthermore, it is crucial to remember that the refugee rehabilitation program regardless of the nation must not be limited to the standard bureaucratic instruments of graphs, figures, and charts. A well-trained phalanx of authorities ought to take a broad and diverse view of the issue, keeping an eye out for divisions based on social indicators such as religion, ethnicity, gender, age, and sect. The most important conclusion we can draw from this is that, given the unlikely nature of foreign troops withdrawing from Afghanistan in the near future, an improvement in the security environment, or a successful resolution of the peace process, Pakistan should prepare for a protracted experience with the phenomenon of repatriation. The refugee crisis won't stop, and the border regions between Pakistan and Afghanistan will remain unorganized and confusing to decision makers. In the end, this would mean that there would be Afghan refugees in Pakistan and perhaps even in Pakistan's future. Therefore, it is advised that the never-ending cycle of generating deadlines be stopped. The problem actually has several facets and is supported by social, cultural, political, humanitarian, and strategic factors. Therefore, it wouldn't be a good idea to choose a simple solution. While figuring out a course of action, the humanitarian aspect of the problem should never be overlooked. Reliability of data would be necessary for a well-informed conclusion, if not accuracy. Meaningful cooperation and synergy between concerned government departments, international organizations, and other stakeholders will enable knowing the complete picture and its dynamics through data. Repatriation goals must be phased in and carried out appropriately, all the while protecting the refugees' dignity. Give unregistered refugees a deadline and assistance in registering. After a limited period of imprisonment, they should be dealt with as refugees and either deported or made to register upon the expiration of this time. It is imperative to acknowledge the critical importance of perceptions and the need for careful control of them at all levels. Pakistan must make the most of its reputation as a country that takes in a sizable number of refugees. Reports of refugees being harassed, exploited, and having to go through arduous legal processes should be thoroughly and openly investigated and handled. In conclusion, it is accurate to say that refugees from Afghanistan living in Pakistan ought to get instruction and training that would enable them to return to their own country and serve as peace ambassadors between the two nations. Furthermore, while it is easy to point the finger at Pakistan for forcing Afghans back without considering the country's 4 decades of hospitality or the numerous issues surrounding Afghan refugees there, what really needs to be addressed is Afghanistan's and its international partners' failure to provide an atmosphere that would encourage Afghans to return to their country of origin.